Hey GBA fans, it's Choice CJ here, back again with the Game of the Week and Season Award Watch with my co-host Jamesanity. Say hello, Jamesanity.
Hello.
And we are coming down to the wire. This is the end of Week 10, and there's a lot of games being played that have really big playoff implications. We might take a look at some of those today. Mr. Jamesanity, why don't you kick us off with your Game of the Week?
Mr. Jamesanity, I like it. Okay, so I actually didn't choose a match with too much playoff implications. Both of these teams were either almost confirmed for playoffs or almost confirmed out of playoffs. But I chose the San Francisco Arcaniners versus the St. Louis Rampardos. It really shows that George is going to be a defending champion, as well as Dan, who hasn't been doing too well this season. He can still go pretty well. One thing I definitely noticed was the Delmies getting burned early by the Mew, putting it kind of down the threat ladder. It didn't end up doing much later, other than getting off a rapid spin, which I'll talk about later, but it didn't really do much offensively, but the burn did help in killing it off in the end. Switching in the Registeel to take a close combat from the Banded Terrakion, I don't know if that was the right play to make, but it certainly affected the rest of the match, because obviously George didn't have Registeel anymore, just died in one hit. Speaking of Delmies ate up an Ice Beam from George's Suicune, living on, I think, exactly one, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And got off a Rapid Spin, which was really important, actually, because the Clefable wasn't Magic Guard, and Victini wasn't Magic Guard either. So, getting those rocks away really did matter. It died to burn in the end, so Delmies couldn't really do much after that. An unfortunate crit was landed on the Clefable by George's Garchomp, preventing the Clefable from getting up a Healing Wish. I really only think this would have mattered for differential points, as the Victini's weakness policy was already worn off, so its potential to sweep was a bit nullified. And speaking of Victini, I saved the best for last. The main reason I picked this for my match of the week was the weakness policy Trick Room Victini that A-Drive brought. It wasn't just the way that Dan prepped with it, but more or less the way George played around it on the fly, switching things in to wear down Trick Room, sacking off the Entei and the Suicune. It was all very nice. You kind of have to sacrifice things when Trick Room Victini at +2/+2 is facing you, so I think those were both the right plays. I don't know, I feel like both players played and prepped really well this match, especially Dan. The crit with the Clefable was unfortunate, but as I said, I really think it would have only mattered for differential, as Victini couldn't really sweep from there, assuming he would have Healing Wished into Victini. CJ, anything to add?
This game was a really close one. I was kind of in the same boat as you. I was really drawn by the weakness policy of Victini. That set was so good. Definitely the best set that Dan's brought this season. It really almost pulled out the game for him. Early game, I felt like George had the advantage. Was able to prevent the rocks with the taunt on Mew. He's able to get off a big Super Fang onto the Scizor. He's able to get the burn on the Delmies, as you mentioned. Dan sort of took back the momentum with his Terrakion, getting off those big close combats on Registeel and Suicune. The spin with the Delmies was nice, but I think that the Victini was probably still in range to live the Surf, even if it had taken rocks. Then as you mentioned, just the crit on Clefable, it really was unfortunate. I'll disagree with you just a little bit on the fact that Victini didn't have as much sweeping potential the second time around. The only Pokemon that were left were Garchomp, Mew, and the Raikou. Victini should have been able to kill all of those. Mew, I guess, probably could have lived 1v Create, but Mew only had Super Fang as attack coverage. It stinks. All of Dan's games are like haxy on one side or the other, and it makes it hard for me to pick them as Game of the Week. But, you know, just as a fan, I always find his matches entertaining. Moving on, we will talk about my choice for Game of the Week, which is the Borussia Donphan versus the Florida Gators, Coach El Scizor versus Gator. This was a game where a lot was on the line. Both teams were 5-4 coming into this week, and basically whoever wins this game kind of solidifies their playoff position. Whoever loses really needs a lot of help to make it in. They basically need to win out, and they need somebody above them to lose out. And I think both players played at a really high level this game. There's a lot of really safe plays, a lot of nice doubles. I liked in the early game when Doublade was staring down the Lucario, and he doubles into Whimsicott, expecting either the Donphan or for the Lucario to go for another EQ. So that was really nice. There was another double later on in the game where Magirna was in, Lars makes a nice double into the Dawn fan, expecting Doublade to come in. Doublade was a pretty hard counter to the Magirna set that Lars brought, so he goes into Dawn fan expecting that Doublade and gets it right. There's a lot of nice plays sort of like that all throughout the game. A pretty hotly debated turn this week was the Will-O-Wisp miss on the Diggersby coming off of that Rotom Heat. Some people were saying that it did matter, some people were saying that it didn't matter. It hurts in both ways, because the Diggersby would have had a boosted up Facade, which would have been really scary, but Lars reminded a lot of people in the weekly recap this week that Diggersby was going to 2-hit KO everything anyway with Frustration, so it's not like it needed the attack boost. So the burn wasn't... People were saying, well, it would have helped Gator more than it would have hurt him, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. The residual damage apparently was important because with just 6% less HP, the Diggersby was going to be in range of like a +2 extreme speed or something like that. But you know, this is sort of the you fall into Pandora's box here, trying to say, well, if this happened, then the game would have played out differently in this way, and that's not a game that I'd like to play very much. At the end, there was the play that really set up the victory for Gator, which was the Tailwind on the Whimsicott, which caught Lars off guard. The Magirna did have Trick Room. It could have clicked it versus the Whimsicott, but I think that would have been kind of an odd play. Lars was also saying in his video that he could have clicked Trick Room the turn before that versus the Doublade, but I think that also would have been kind of weird. It definitely would have won him the game, but I don't think you can fault him for not clicking Trick Room, because you don't know what sort of set the Doublade has. You don't know its full move set. But as played, the Tailwind allows the Heat Train to come in. Heat Train does hit 2 Fire Blasts back to back, and that's going to be able to seal the game for him. 2-0 victory. Again, just really well played on both sides. Even though Lars was pretty critical of himself, I don't think he made that many mistakes, if any. And Gator just played spectacularly, scouting for moves. He wanted to make sure the Magirna wasn't packing Shadow Ball for his Doublade. And just really put himself in a nice position to win. James, do you have anything to comment on for this game?
Yes, I will say that this match the Donphan versus Gators match will definitely matter more long-term concerning the playoffs race than the match I picked. However, the Willow miss was really unfortunate, and admittedly, it was kind of sad seeing Lars' commentary and the criticism he was giving himself when really I don't think he played all that badly. I will agree with you that the 2 turns he could have gone for Trick Room would have been kind of strange or kind of odd, just going for Trick Room against a Doublade, which is really slow, or a Whimsicott, which he didn't know had Tailwind, so yeah, I'd say it was a pretty good match.
Of course, if you guys are watching, please make sure to let us know down in the comments below what you thought your favorite match of the week was. We'd love to hear your feedback and have a discussion with you guys on what the best games were of this week. With that, we'll now transition, as we do every week, into a discussion of the potential season awards. We always have a discussion on the potential offensive Pokemon of the season, defensive Pokemon of the season, and we also share our thoughts on who might end up being the coach of this season. Things are getting really down to the wire here. It's funny because I think the trend lately has been less clarity in these rankings as the seasons come closer to the end, which is sort of opposite of what I might have expected. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the offensive category, Mr. Jamesanity?
Back again with the Mr. Jamesanity. Alright. Well, obviously at the top we still have Cobalion from the Detroit Steel Wings. It didn't get any kills this week, but we still have to keep it at the top, pretty much because it has 14 kills, and that's leading the leaderboards by 2 kills. Crocodile still deserves a mention. It hasn't come in 2 weeks, but it still is second on the leaderboard, so we're going mostly by stats here. Virizion, which again didn't come this week, and I know Victini has more kills, however, we don't feel that Victini has performed like on a weekly basis compared to Virizion or Crocodile, but I do have to give a slight mention to both Victini and Kyurem Black. Cobalion, Crocodile, and Virizion hasn't really done too much for us recently. Like, they haven't really put on any stellar performances. Crocodile got 2 kills, I think, a couple of weeks ago, but that's about it in terms of exceptional performances. But Victini and Kyurem Black have had exceptional performances in the past few weeks, just not every week, so I do have to mention them, and they might creep their way onto the official list very shortly.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's just been a lot of non-activity at the top. So Pokemon like Victini and Kyurem Black could definitely find an opportunity to jump into the list here soon. The defensive Mon of the season category is kind of the same. Melodic was a Pokemon that did not come this week for the New Orleans Pelipers. Neither did Pyukumuku of the Florida Gators. The only Pokemon that came this week that I'm going to include in this discussion is the Alolan Muck. MV actually mixed it up this week and brought an Assault Vest set, which I think is just as potent as the Figgy Berry set, if I'm being honest. That AV set was able to get kills on Serena and Sylveon this week, just being able to wall those Pokemon. Sylveon is a really nice wall for Chase's team. It was another Wish set this week, and it could have really prolonged the match like we saw in the previous week versus the Utah Jasmine, but the Alolan Muck made sure that that didn't happen. We had Fortress in this conversation last week, but I don't think it's earned its spot this week, because all it did this week was get a Prox, and then it got killed by Steelix pretty quickly. It did get some nice Rocky Helmet damage and Earthquake damage onto that Steelix, but it wasn't able to kill it, wasn't able to prevent rocks, and as soon as Cryogonal came in, it quickly spun away Fortress's rocks. So those are my thoughts on the defensive category. If you guys think there are any season-long stand-up performers for the defensive Mon category, make sure to share them down in the comments below. I really want to hear what you guys think about this, because it's getting kind of hard to pick the Mons here. Jamesanity, why don't you tell us about our Coach of the Season category?
As per usual this past few weeks, we really only have one option here, and again, we didn't discuss this earlier because it is pretty obvious. It is MV and the San Diego Chimchargers on a 9-game winning streak, which is the highest winning streak in this season by far, and he also has the highest differential this season by far with a 25 differential, not to mention the highest record with 9-1. MV's just been playing insanely well this season, and really looking forward to what he does in playoffs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. He played really well around the Cobalion this week, pivoting between the Magnezone and the Landorus. He was able to sniff out that HP Ice and get the Cobalion weakened, and then he was able to kill with a superpower from his Landorus T. That was really impressive. Just, you know, the thing that I have to say about MV is that he has a team that not a lot of people liked at the beginning of the season, myself included. We've got 4 water types, doesn't appear to have a whole lot of synergy on the surface, and he has a few Pokemon that can't really come every week. Like, it's hard for him to bring Pokemon like Kabutops and Kingdra every single week. So he kind of has a roster of like 9 Mons to start, but he's been able to make it work. Nobody's really been able to solve him this season besides Gator in the very first week of the season. MV's been on a roll, and like you said, he's going to make some noise in the playoffs. That is going to conclude our discussion for this video. I do want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you click the like button down below. Make sure you subscribe to the GBA channel to catch all of the latest analyst videos. Make sure you check out our coaches so you can watch the final 2 weeks of action. Jamesanity, do you have any final words?
Yeah. We know you were watching us, but we are not the only analysts here. There is the Pick'em crew, there are the power rankings, there's the weekly recap, and there's the new playoff picture. There is a ton of different series on the GBA channel, so as CJ said, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button just to make sure that you get notified every time that the GBA uploads new content, because I think that's almost daily.
Yeah, absolutely. The GBA has a really good collection of analysts that are very dedicated and put out a lot of high quality content, so lucky to be part of that group. Once again, on behalf of Jamesanity and myself, thank you guys for watching, and until the next time, we will see you guys later.